Hey everybody, welcome to the lesson 1 video for the week April 22nd through the 28th. We are going to do a little bit of a review on histograms because we felt like Miss Osberg, Miss Arling, and I, this is Miss Felchner by the way, felt like we needed to do a little bit more of a review and more practice on that. So that's why we are back to histograms, okay? So in this lesson, you're going to be able to understand what a histogram is and actually how to analyze it. So let's take a look here. So this is just a random set of data. So let's just say that I walked into a Starbucks and I asked for every person's age in Starbucks. So somebody was 21, somebody was 35, and so on. So I want to do a histogram of all this data. The first thing I have to do is I have to write a frequency table using intervals. So it looks like my smallest number here is 12. No, it's not. My smallest number here is 7. And my largest number, it looks like, is 42. So when I look at these numbers, I'm going to do intervals of 10. Okay? So I'm going to do just a frequency table of 0 to 10. Then I would do 11 to 21. And 43 to 53. Nope, I'm going to do 44 to 54. That's my bad, I'm sorry. So these are our intervals that we built. Again, I just look at what kind of numbers that we're dealing with and what's in that data, and I build from there. So then I go through my data and I check off how many numbers are in between 0 and 10. So we have 7, that's 1. And it looks like that's it. Cool. Then we have 11 to 21. So I see 19. I see 13 and 16. That's 2 more. I see 12. And I see 16. And I also see 21. Let me try 21 there. That's not what you wanted. Okay, so we have 6 in that interval. Then 22 to 32. So I see 27. It looks like that's it. 33 to 43. I see 35. I see 39. And I see 42. Then I see 1 from 44 to 54, right there at the 46. So this is our quick data table, okay? Then we're going to build a histogram from that. So a histogram is set up similar to a bar graph. The difference between a bar graph and a histogram is that the bars are touching in a histogram. In a bar graph, they're not. So let's do this. So my y-axis here, my frequency, and my x-axis. So my intervals are going to go on my x-axis, okay? So we'll do that in a second, but my frequency comes from my table right here. It comes from these numbers. So I have 1, 1, 1, 3, and 6. So I could do something like, I could literally go by 1s. I could go by 2s. Since these numbers are so small, I would just go by 1s. So we would have 0 here. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Again, these numbers right here, these tally marks represent how many people are in those intervals of ages. Okay. So that means one person was in between the age of 0 and 10. One person was in between the ages, 6 people were in between the ages of 11 and 21, which also include 11 and 21. Okay, so let's do our intervals. So we have, so right here we have 0 to 10. Do a different color. So right here we have 0 to 10. Next we have 11 to 21. 22 to 32. 33 to 43. And our last one is 44 to 54. Okay, so again, we build these with bars. The bar goes as high as the frequency does, as the frequency tells us to go. So let's use our red ink here. So it looks like we have 1 in our 0 to 10. So I would just simply draw a bar graph going from here and down, and then I would shade it in. Then it looks like we have, for 11 to 21, we have 6. So I would start here. Notice it goes right next to it. Down, and shade it in. From 22 to 32, we have 1 again. Go back to that in red. Now again, these are not the same width because I cannot draw anything to save my life. But they should be the exact same width. Okay. The next one is 33 to 43, which is 3. Use orange on this one. And then our last one is 43 to 54, which is back to 1. Oop. Okay. So I'm going to rewrite these so you guys can see them better. Okay, so this should be a little bit clearer. So notice how in each interval, there's 10 in there. So 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Okay? So your intervals have to be the same. We can't have an interval of 3 and then an interval of 4 and then an interval of 5 and an interval of 10. So your intervals go on your x-axis. So it goes 0 to 10. So there's 10. 11 to 21. There's 10 there. 22 to 32. There's 10 there. 33 to 43. There's 10 there. 44 to 54. There's 10 there. So this is how you build a histogram. Okay? So let's look at some data from here. If I didn't have this extra information and I just had the histogram, you can pull out the mean, median, mode of the frequency. And I'm going to go here. So on your, I'm just going to use this one because it's much neater than mine. Your frequency is going to be on your y-axis. So you'll see that right there, frequency. And then your categorical data, which is your intervals, will go down here on your x-axis. Okay? When it's asking for mean, median, and mode of on a histogram, you always want to use your frequencies, okay? So on this one here, my blue right here, that would be 20 there. This would be 25, because again, I'm going off of the bar on the histograms. This one is 30. This one is 15. This is 10, and this is 5. So to find out how many objects were in this survey, you would just add up all these numbers that I just wrote down, okay? You would, to find the mean, you would add them all up and divide by 6. To find the median, you would put them in order from least to greatest and find your middle number, okay? So think about that. And all these vocab terms, mean, median, mode, range, is also on the vocab chart that's also in your It's Learning. To find your range, you would take your highest number of 30, subtract your lowest number of 5 to get your range of 25. So you're using these numbers for that, okay? This page is just referring to comparing bar graphs, which should be over here, to histograms, which should be over here, okay? So when you look at a bar graph and a histogram, you can obviously tell a very visual difference. In a histogram, all the bars are literally side by side connected. There's no spaces in between the bars. On a bar graph, there are these spaces right here, right here, right here, and right here. All that space is there because it's a bar graph. It's not a histogram, okay? You'll also notice in a histogram, you have intervals on your x-axis for the categorical data. On a bar graph, you have terms, or you have actual categories named by real things on a bar graph. That's typically how you'll see a bar graph. When it talks about the shape and the distribution, I really need you to hear this point right here. So when it says, what is the distribution of the data? When it says that, it's talking about, what is the data telling us? Like, what does it mean? Is it spread out equally? Are all the bars the same height? Are they different? Do they go up and down evenly? Is there a pattern? Or is it, well, there was way more right here in the 3 to 6 category than there was in any other category. Okay, so you would look at the label on the X and Y axes, and talk about that very briefly, very like not super deep, but what does that look like? Okay? When we're looking here, let's go back to our original one. So these right here were all ages of people in a Starbucks. So when you look at the histogram, how could you describe that data? Well, we would say that the majority of the people in the Starbucks were between 11 and 21, which are those teenage college years, which kind of makes sense to me because a lot of those students are probably in there studying or hanging out. There's very few people in between 44 and 54. So you would say it was mainly a teenage hangout. So that's all it's asking when it's talking about describe the shape and the distribution of the data. Okay? Something else to also understand. In histograms, you don't get very much detailed data. We don't know. When I look at this category here from 11 to 21, I don't know how many 13-year-olds and how many 14-year-olds and how many 7-year-olds from the histogram. It doesn't give you detailed data there. It just gives you in categories. There were 6 people in between the ages of 11 and 21. There was only one person in between the age of 0 to 10. It doesn't tell you how old that person was. So it doesn't give you the details very well, but it does describe it more in a more visually, okay? Your frequency table leads into that. So this is where you start. You take your data and you sort it into the frequency table. That is really sloppy. Okay, so I labeled this here, and I actually typed it up so you can actually read it, since my handwriting is so terrible. So this here is the frequency table. Right here. This right here with the tally marks. And again, you don't have to put those tally marks. I could have actually written 1 or 6 or 1 and 3 and 1. That's okay too. The tally marks help me when I'm counting. So we start with the frequency table. You create that, then you sort the data into the correct intervals, which are your categories. Then you set up your histogram. Okay? If you have questions from this, watch it one more time, because sometimes when you watch something more than once, it kind of brings more clarity, like, oh, I missed that part, or I zoned out for a second, which is totally fine. So make sure that you watch this more than once if you're stuck. Okay, there's also the Khan Academy video. I'm also going to link a short video explaining your homework to you guys. Okay? All right, good luck again. This is Miss Felchner. So if you are from Miss Osberg's class, welcome. And we'll have a good time. Okay, again, email me with any questions you guys need. Okay, bye guys.